Welcome everyone to another edition of Countdown to Game Day. I'm Rich McGowan, the high school sports reporter at the Savannah Morning News, and I'm here to tell you everything you need to know before heading out to the stadium. Last week was a memorable one as the area saw pouring rain at most games from start to finish, but despite the sloppy conditions, Memorial Day won the Giza Region 2 AA Championship with a 27 win over Bullock Academy. In other action, Windsor Forest leapfrogged Johnson in the Region 5A standings after a 36-21 win over the Adams Smashers. Groves ran through Savannah High to the tune of 43-6, and Savannah Country Day tied up the Tigers of Claxton in a 26-14 victory. Also, the Braves of Bible Baptist won the Giza 2 Single A Championship after a 52-20 win at St. John's Christian. Now we're coming down to the wire now, which is this week and next week remaining in the regular season. A couple teams have already secured their playoff berths, teams like Memorial and Bible Baptist. Other teams, however, like Johnson, Windsor Forest, and Groves, are jockeying with each other for positioning for the playoffs. So let's talk about that a little more right now. Last week, Johnson missed an opportunity to clinch its first playoff berth since 1992, but it gets another chance to enter the postseason if the Adams Smashers can knock off the Tigers of Bradwell Institute Thursday night at Memorial Stadium. As good as the Johnson passing game has been this year, led by quarterbacks Darrell Smith and Christian Cooper, the Smashers have to get more production from their running game if they're going to compete with the Tigers. Last week, Johnson had negative 55 rushing yards, and no team is going to win with production like that from the running game. Running the ball is something the Bradwell Tigers have done all year long. Led by running back Sheldon Barnes, the Tigers are a big and physical team who are going to look to control the game and pound the ball on the ground against the Smashers. Even if Johnson loses Thursday night, the Smashers can still clinch a playoff berth if Windsor defeats Groves Friday night. And as much as Johnson has improved this season, I think Bradwell will prove to be too big, too strong, and too physical, and too deep for the Smashers to keep up. That's why I like the Tigers to win this one, 28-18. Unlike years past, Region 3 Single A is split into subregions. Next week, the top 4 teams in each subregion will meet in the region playoff, meaning this is the last week for teams battling to finish in the top 4 spots for a shot at the state playoffs. With a win Friday, Savannah Country Day can finish as high as 3rd in the East subregion. A loss, however, will bounce the Hornets down to 5th and eliminate them from making their 7th straight state playoff appearance. This week, the Hornets host Bryan County. Brighton County is coming off a 12-6 loss to previously winless Portal. Even though the Redskins are last in the East right now, they can still qualify for the region playoff with a win over the Hornets and a Portal loss to Savannah Christian. Even with a win Friday, this has to be a disappointing season for Bryan County, none more so than senior running back Ivy Mutcherson. The senior ran for almost 1,600 yards last year, but through 8 games this season has been limited to just over 600. Savannah Country Day, meanwhile, is coming off an impressive 26-14 win over Claxton, in which the Hornet defense swarmed the Claxton running game in the midst of downpouring rain. The SCD defense held Claxton to just 108 total yards of offense, more than 150 yards less than its previous low. Offensively, the Hornets also had one of their best running performances of the season, with 231 yards coming on the ground, 68 from Morris Watson and 62 from Ford Glaze. It's been a long year for Bryan County, and anytime a team loses to a winless team like Portal, it can be a spirit crusher for the rest of the season. Country Day, on the other hand, is coming off a big win over Claxton, and it's hard to pick against momentum, which is why I like the Hornets to win this one, 21-12. Another Region 3 Single A contest with region playoff implications is Claxton at Calvary Day. These teams enter Friday night, number 2 and number 3 in the East subregion, and the winner will go on to host next week's region playoff game. Calvary enters with a .500 record at 4-4 after suffering a 16-3 setback last week against Savannah Christian. The Cavaliers managed just 124 total yards of offense in the rain and mud and against a stout Raider defense. The Cavs' rush defense has been fairly solid all year this year, and that will be put to the test against the Tigers. Claxton is led by the running game consisting of speed and power of Jamal Collin Morgan and Fellis Grant. The Tigers' running game, however, had trouble finding its gear last week as Claxton managed just 114 rushing yards against Savannah Country Day. Considering both Calvary and Claxton are coming off losses last week in which the weather played a major factor, both squads will be looking to get back on track before the region playoff. This is not an easy game to call, but I think Calvary Day might just be a little bit more balanced on both sides of the ball, and that's why I'm picking the Cavs to finish number 2 in the East Sub region after taking a 2012 win over Claxton. While the playoffs are officially 2 weeks away, the postseason has basically begun for teams in Region 3 5A, where Windsor Forest and Groves meet in this week's Game of the Week. With a win, Windsor Forest can clinch a playoff spot as the number 3 seed in the region. If Groves win, then the Rebels, Knights, and Johnson Atom Smashers will be in a 3-way tie for the final 2 playoff spots with just a week to go. Groves is entering Friday's showdown as healthy as it's been all season, with running back Maurice Lexley returning to form after battling ankle injuries, as well as returning starters to the defense. The Rebels are playing their best football of the season and have won 2 straight games after last week's 43-6 thumping of Savannah High. The Rebels have also gotten solid play all year from his quarterback, Brandon Jones, who has completed 50% of his passes this year for 700 yards. Windsor Forest is of course led by its quarterback, Donovan Campbell. Campbell eclipsed the 1,000-yard mark last week in the Knights' win over Johnson. He's also a threat with his legs, as the Rebels know, as he ran for over 100 yards in the meeting last year and scored 5 touchdowns en route to a 34-15 Knights victory. I went up to both schools this week to talk to the coaches about just how big Friday's meeting is.
Looking forward to an exciting contest. It's a playoff spot, basically a playoff game for us and them. They beat Johnson this past week. Johnson beat us earlier in the year, so we're fortunate enough to beat Windsor Forest Friday night and create a 3-way tie between the 3 of us for 2 playoff spots. And that's very important to us. That's one of our main goals this year, to make the playoffs. So this Friday night is arguably the most important game of the season for us.
It's definitely a big game on the 31st with Groves. For both teams. If we win, we're in the playoffs. I think Groves is thinking that same thing. And our guys are playing well the last few weeks. Groves is playing well. It's going to be a dogfight. I think our guys will be ready for the challenge.
This is perhaps one of the toughest games I've had to call so far this year. These teams are similar in a lot of ways. Both defenses have been playing well in recent weeks. Both have dynamic, talented quarterbacks, and both teams have a number of running backs who can run the ball. I think this could go either way, but at the start of the season, I had Windsor Forest finishing 3rd in the region and Groves finishing 4th. I'm going to stick to my guns and maintain that pick, and that's why I'm picking the Knights to win an entertaining game, 26-24. That's all for this week. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to check back right here next week to savannahnow.com/prepcentral for the final regular season edition of Countdown to Game Day. For the Savannah Morning News, I am Rich McGowan.